we are the Dubai Institute of Design and Innovation. We are on a mission by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed to increase the talent in design, to help Dubai become one of the top, if not the top, economy based on creativity. So this is a big charge, a big responsibility that we have. And creative economy has 3 legs to stand on: infrastructure, mindset, and talent. So our job is to grow the talent, and today we have very talented people on the panel as well. To create a creative economy is very important in this age. We hear about the 4th Industrial Revolution. The 4th Industrial Revolution is very much tied with the creative industry, in my opinion. And this is how we built the curriculum. We built the curriculum with MIT and with Parsons. Now, why do I say that? Because the first 3 revolutions, whether they are based on steam engine, electricity, or robotics, they're about augmenting human labor. The 4th Industrial Revolution is enhancing human intelligence. So in our opinion, it's a different kind of revolution. It's qualitatively different, right? And to think about that, the area that the machine has not yet mastered is human emotion and adding value through emotion, right? We can add value through intelligence, we can add value through manufacturing, but adding value through emotion is the key driver. So today I believe we are in the age of design. This is what I believe, because the age of design is about understanding empathy, ta'atuf, and using empathy to solve complex problems. In our world, we think that design is creative, critical thinking, problem solver for complex problems, starting with understanding and empathizing with the person trying to, who is facing that problem. Rather than thinking of a technology and then applying it, we think of it as what is the pain point that they are suffering from? How can we help them using our creativity? Right? So I see the panel nodding. So if we want to build a global city that is driven by the creative economy in the 4th Industrial Revolution, we face challenges. Now, when I said that our role as a university is to build a talent, we have Dubai Culture, we have the DDA, who are actually building the infrastructure, right? A solid, robust infrastructure like nothing we have seen in the world, and a commitment and a mindset. So that's why I'm very happy to be here, and I would address the first question to L'Ukht Khulud and ask her, what are some of the challenges a global city might face as we shift the economic focus or economic growth or value generation based on a creative culture?
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Hani. So I think some of the keywords that you're talking and I want to build on is the creative economy. And I think, first of all, before understanding any challenges, we really need to understand where we are as global cities. And for us at Dubai Culture, I think this started by, the cultural statistics framework. So really understanding when we talk about the creative and cultural sector in Dubai, what does that include? How large is that sector? And by analyzing this information and by looking at the statistics, I think we're able to have a clearer picture of where we are now and where we need to reach and what are the challenges in between. And so for us, it's really in 2019, we looked at understanding what does the creative and cultural sector look like in Dubai, and that was divided into 6 sectors and 27 subsectors. So looking at design is one of the main components of that, but of course that covers many different areas such as visual arts, performing arts, and theater. And of course, by understanding the creative and cultural industries in Dubai, the government really looked at where are we now and where do we want to reach, setting targets for the future growth, understanding that the creative economy actually is a large contributor to Dubai's growth as its economic growth, and it's the number of businesses, creative businesses that are registered in the cities, the number of designers or employees that are employed by the industry. So these are all elements that contribute towards understanding how does this sector contribute towards the growth of its economy, we did see that majority of the businesses or designers are predominantly 97% of them are micro to small businesses. So this is a big challenge that we see, that if the majority of creatives are small in scale, probably their biggest challenge is perhaps scaling up. Maybe this is where we need to look at how we as governments or as a city can provide the infrastructure or regulations and policies to support designers to scale. And perhaps it's not a challenge. Is it something that designers, really do want to stay at the small scale where they're able to control their practice, they're able to control their impact? They want to work on a more person-to-person level rather than, working in large corporations. So for us at, Dubai Culture and the government of Dubai, I think it's really understanding and looking at, the creative industries as a contributor to Dubai's economy, where it contributed to 4% of the GDP. We looked at, I think, last year around 15,000 businesses registered, and around over 100,000 employees. So this is where we are now. We do understand that with different sectors within design and within the creative economy, there are challenges that perhaps are similar to other entrepreneurs. When it comes to setting up their businesses, it could come into looking at their intellectual property. It could look at things related to funding and scaling. So predominantly, these are the main things. And I think Ahmed, perhaps as a practicing designer, would be able to build onto that challenge.
That's great. Thank you. There's so much there to unpack, and I'm coming to you, Ahmed, to follow up on what was said. But I'd like to also, if you don't mind, as being one of the few Emirati, if not the only Emirati designer who worked at the global event, which is the Expo 2020 and the UAE pavilion, if I'm not mistaken, right? And what was that experience like as a contributor to the global culture of design? What do you feel was the impact? And then I will follow up on a following question. But if you can tell us about that and tie it together, that would be wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the introduction. And I'd like to thank World Government Summit and Dubai Municipality for inviting me to this panel, along with distinguished guests such as yourselves. The main challenge that we faced as, you can say, a small, medium enterprise firm was that we were burdened, and also at the same time we were very privileged to put our footprints on the Expo site. We were contacted directly by Expo themselves, and it's very important to understand the first few sentences that they told us. We want you, Ahmed, personally to put your personal touch as an Emirati on this pavilion. We had previously many options, however, they lacked the human-centric approach. So I think that says a lot to all of the Emiratis and the local talent that we have, is that sometimes you can say multinational firms cannot interpret our local heritage in the way that it should be interpreted. In fact, I would say that only 10% of our full potential has been achieved until now. And we are going, in the next couple of decades, going to face enormous global challenges, both in terms of technological challenges, in terms of geopolitical challenges, social and economical. And I think the key factor that I see in all the talks that I see is that Dubai is pretty much doing okay, but globally the world is not as good as doing as we are. So we really need to put into perspective the factor of innovation, and innovation can only be done through design, and design can only be done through nurturing the young talent coming out and giving them the empowerment that they need to achieve it. And honestly, it is all about passion. If you as a designer don't have passion, you will not, your engine will stop very fast. So that engine keeps us going, working hours, post-working hours, because as a designer, we don't look at the commercial gain, we look at the human factor.
Absolutely, beautifully said, Ahmed, thank you. And in the curriculum that we have developed, passion is the main driver. We ask the students, we search for that jewel. We believe that inside everyone is what we call the A trying to come out. And the job of the educator today is to bring that out, bring out their passion. So the whole curriculum is based on trying to understand the student's approach and then adapting. We call it engaged learning. And this addresses the point that Ukht Khulud mentioned, which is that the large majority of the industry are small teams, because once these individual passions get subsumed in a corporate culture, they lose the spirit. So it's very important, and I'm happy to see that the Dubai culture and the government understands that this is the jewel, right, to nourish this talent, as long as we work together in concert rather than as developing divas. We don't believe in that. The other thing that I want to mention is that there's something we call the triple helix that we work with always, which is the government, the private sector, and education, which is represented here in a way. And now we've expanded it to the fourth a part of the helix, which is the community, and the fifth, which is the environment. And what I'd like to stress to this distinguished audience that when we talk about design, we talk about the culture of design, which is the culture of solving complex problems, as you said, Akh Ahmed, that it is a way of solving problems with a human touch. It's not about making things look pretty. It's not about things making things on the surface. It's actually going to the core, to the human core, and using our creativity to solve these problems. In our book, innovation is implementing design. If it's not implemented, it's not innovative, right? And I come back to you, Ukht Khulud, and I say, as Dubai culture, where do you get this wisdom to realize that you are a main pillar to support this environment? Where do you get your inspiration to do that? Because this is unique. This is not, you don't find this in many places, because a global economy based on creativity requires the wisdom and the support that we have from the government. Where do you get it?
I think one of the key things that, if I would say, is the key to having that wisdom, if you call it, is really being close to our community. I think, and this is something that I've heard, from people coming internationally and say that we're so surprised to see that how government is really interacting with the industry. You really you're a WhatsApp, message away from each other. And the fact that we're at the pulse of what's happening, we're on the ground, we don't consider, a government as someone who's above, but really we consider, us as a key component to work together. And, nothing can, I think, be achieved in silos. So always making sure that, we have that dialogue open amongst our community. I think we always have an open door policy where, people are always welcome to Dubai culture, even if it's, just to vent or say, this is what we're challenged by. And we're also making sure to actively reach out and to engage and, understand what's happening. We're really glad to have, the number of events which are bringing the community together. And our role is to be there and, to create more of these dialogue, just as today's session is, to make sure that we're able to hear the insights, understand what are the pain points. And really, I think that's where, design or problem solving comes from, is really understanding what the true challenge is, rather than you assuming this is the challenge. And I think, that's the first step, to really understand and work with the community to really pinpoint the key challenges, understand, what the government's role is in solving these challenges, and when it's not the government's role, who we can work together to collaborate and, come together and for the better of the industry. So I think,
it could be the industry that's a missing link, and I think we need to continue to build bridges with that. Brother Ahmed, I want to come back to the fifth helix, right, which is the environment, right? So the three helix is government, industry, design, then the community, then the environment. Why is it important that design, not just to design sustainable buildings, but to use design thinking to solve some of the world's weakest problems, whether it's pollution in the city, sustainability, the environment, and all of things? How does design play a role at the larger scale than just the building culture, if you want?
I think when I was studying in Japan, they always have a term called glocal. I always ask them, what does that mean? I thought it was bad English, but actually it was not. It's basically global outlook with a local perspective. And they have been doing it already for decades. And the main thing, I'll give you a simple example. A lot of people, when they come to Dubai, they say, how can you build a walkable or a city that you can cycle in when the weather is so harsh? I always answer them in the same way. How come our parents were living in houses without air conditioning? And if you just take a simple example of a wind tower, when you can use it in public fields, when you can use it in public areas, right of ways and so forth, why don't we apply that on bridges, below the bridges? So, for example, these are all naturally shaded spaces. However, regulation can update and can develop new transit-oriented developments that can solve it while utilizing local technologies such as hybrid ventilation systems that are used for cooling people, both naturally without using a lot of energy. That is one example of hundreds of examples that I can mention where design with a local perspective can identify issues that are affecting a global audience, which in the end, as you know, a lot of European cities cannot even retrofit their buildings because of the traditional infrastructure they have due to their, and instead of implementing, and they all cannot sustain an air conditioning system. However, if you use natural ventilation in systems that we have developed over decades, I think it's very easy to say that we already have one treasure in hand, one amongst many.
And what is fascinating about what you're saying is that one of the biggest challenges of designers is how can, the question I would frame it as, how can we be modern without being sentimental, meaning without being nostalgic or superficial in the way we interpret the culture? And what you're giving is a very good example of using our heritage, using our culture, adapting it for a modern way of living rather than having nostalgia for the past. And this idea of something you touched on, Khulud, is basically what design can do, and you touched on it, but I want to expand on it, is that it makes us shift our culture from a culture that receives and consumes to a culture that produces and exports, right? And just a way of just being very proud of what we have done at the IDI. We developed the program, and now MIT is copying us because we work together with that. So MIT, the world's #1 university, is looking at what we did in Dubai, and they are applying it now. And they said this publicly, right? So this is what design can do. Do you have examples of where designers have taken Dubai on a global level as initiators of ideas rather than just consumers? I address it to you, but Ahmed, if you have, please, this is a beautiful topic.
Sure.
Yeah.
After you.
I think, like you said, I think the word exports is really something that we're focusing on. And I think we're very used to Dubai as, you know, people look at the Middle East as a consuming market, and I think you considered a retail market rather than a production and export space, and I think this is where we're hoping that the shift is going to move. And when we look at the ecosystem, I think we do have the components that are supportive to production and manufacturing. Perhaps there's been inhibitive in terms of cost, but I think this is what the government is looking towards, and how can we first of all incentivize or kind of encourage more local manufacturing and production, not just of products, but like you mentioned, of ideas, of innovations. And I think it's the Dubai vision, which is looking at innovation, looking at kind of research, looking at if it's not the ideas that are coming out of here, it's bringing the people who have these ideas, and Dubai is seen as that platform that you can raise out and address these challenges. I think the Museum of the Future is a great example of taking global challenges and looking at ways to kind of solve it. And I think before that, of course, I think we all experienced that during Expo. We looked at all of the different challenges, whether they're sustainability, whether the SDGs, and how in theory design is actually, maybe it wasn't presented in that way, but actually design has really been the fundamental way that we can solve these challenges. So I think we are at the stage now where we're looking at Dubai or, talent being represented internationally.
Yeah.
I think we've been great that Dubai has hosted a lot of these global platforms over here, and has been spotlighting individuals, whether it's at expos or even at Dubai Design Week, where we host international designers, but also a platform to showcase our talent. I think no one's really coming off the top of my head, but I think what we've seen with the Global Grad Show, what we've even seen with graduates from DIDI, is they've already, shifted their focus to not just, producing elements or products, but really it's about, inventing and innovating when it comes to perhaps sustainable materials that are looking to source resources locally, and how, these materials are better suited to our environment. And of course, our environment would, replicate in other geographies as well, right? So you have other places which has the heat and the arid temperature and the humidity. So there are opportunities globally available. And I think looking at and supporting, and the IDI's focus on, it's not just about producing aesthetically pleasing and functioning objects, but it's about going deeper and analyzing and seeing how you can push this further, and what are the gaps. And I think it's also your flexibility with your curriculum, if I can say that, you don't really put a person in a bucket. And I think that's the fluidity of design. And when we look at the way that design is evolving, and I think Ahmed probably would feel that an architect doesn't just stay within his sphere. Like you're experimenting, whether it's even in textile or you're experimenting in smaller scale and interiors. And the idea that a designer is a designer, whether it's you're designing a garment, or whether you're designing a building, or whether you're designing actually a solution or even an application. And I think that breaking away from the very rigid, I think, notion of design as different verticals, and you need to design a building and you just stay at that. I think is now the way that the future is going, and that's where we see the interdisciplinary kind of practices have allowed designers to open up their minds and to really say, actually, why not? Even if I'm an architect, I want to try this, I want to experiment, and it's all about innovation and being open, and not really kind of setting yourself into this is the box that I need to fit in. And that's what creativity is, I think, really all about, and the passion and the human element that maybe cannot be replicated by technology.
And to hear this from a government representative, this is music to our ears. It really is a beautiful way to think about, because design is a way of thinking, could be architecture, could be anything. Just 2 points about what you said, just comments, and then I'll open it up to you. Basically, when people, we don't say thinking outside the box at the IDI, because there is no box. So whenever we say, think outside we say, what box? There is no box. That doesn't exist. And talking about the things that we do, we integrate technology from the first year. So the second year students now with Professor Rafi have transformed the robotic arm into 3D printing sand. And this semester, we're going to experiment with a different sand. And next semester, we're going to actually take it out to the desert and actually build walls just with a 3D printer, which is from a robotic arm. So this is something that's very important, because it takes the local resource. And the thing is, with the space agency, you can do the same thing and take it to Mars, to the moon. It's the same technology. So, and this is what we're interested in. And a lot of these students are fashion design students, right, who were working with the robot to do 3D printing sand. So it's very exciting to see this cross-pollination. So coming back to you, Ahmed, in the sense that, what are some examples where design can be no longer just about consumption, but about production and setting the standard?
Well, I just saw yesterday a video of a waterproof kandura. So if we can see a waterproof kandura, I think we can see anything. But I think in general, as I mentioned, we have a lot of innovations, exporting, and in terms of the cycling, in terms of mobility, and I think also in terms of transit-oriented developments, which is urban planning in general. I think we have the ability to counter a lot of the global impact issues, that even carbon emissions.
Because of the harsh climate.
Exactly. I think we have been raised in this climate, and we're already, we have all the tools necessary to counter that. In terms of specific examples, honestly, I hope that I have much more examples when we talk 10 years from now or even sooner, because I think it's not really the main aim to highlight what are the technologies, because we need to first make an ecosystem. We have to understand that when you have a new idea, it needs to be nurtured. So one example I would say of an initiative is when we visited a university in Italy, they actually had a department called ARCA, which was an offspring of a university graduate program, where they actually nurture the innovations of students. They have funding from corporate entities, and they allow them to develop their ideas so that it will also nurture them post-education. It's not like, the problem now is that you have incubation programs, but the incubation program is limited in terms of its duration. The incubation itself should be the whole life cycle of the idea, because incentive-wise, government-wise, the whole life cycle will benefit. The whole process of creating an incubation should not be limited only to stage 1. Yes. It should be stage 1 and stage 2 and stage 3, which is the ultimate product that will be put in the market. So I think that's more important than highlighting technologies, because honestly, there are many ideas out there. Yes. But it needs a lot of a systematic approach to nurture it, to mature it, and to grow it to reach that global market.
This is a great point, because to think about the timeline of incubation, you're right. It should be the lifespan of it. At DIDI, we have, because we are part of Dubai Holding, we have a program with In5 where the students continue an extra year, and you just get for free and to incubate their idea. But you gave me an idea that it should be the lifetime of the project. We are running out of time. I'm very respectful of everyone's time. I would like to open the floor to Khulud for some closing remarks, followed by Al-Akh Ahmed. Please go ahead.
I think, if anything from my insights would be that I think Dubai very much has started with the main kind of requirements when it comes to academic and education, and has the vision, but perhaps like Ahmed mentioned, that there is that current disconnect between what happens after academia and the industry, which is something that we would like to look at how we can together enforce. From the government's perspective, we're already very much looking at design as it is actually the largest sector that contributes to our creative economy, actually almost 50% of it. So we do see the true value of it, and we're really looking to focus. So together with our colleagues at different government organizations such as Dubai Municipality, looking at how we can together bridge those challenges, look at different strategies and initiatives that can support the industry. We're always actively engaging, and we already have, I think, a great amount of achievements, looking at how Dubai Design Week has really positioned Dubai globally, being a UNESCO Creative City of Design, the first Middle East city since 2017. I think that really solidifies our position globally. And, as Dubai does always, we always do outperform and really do bring a lot to the table. And I'm really excited, like Ahmed said. So in the next 10 years, what is, going to come out of Dubai, and hopefully whether that's with the government support or academic or the 5 helix that you mentioned, I think there's a lot of interesting projects and initiatives, and of course making sure that Dubai is that nurtured city. I think the cultural visa and the golden visa also very much changed the way that we look at creatives in general, allowing freelancers that flexibility. So I think this is just one of the initiatives that's already set in place. The Al Goz Creative Zone, looking at an organic space that was a home to creativity, and how can the Dubai government, as their role, whether it's improving the infrastructure, looking at business setup, what are the elements that we can just come to build upon that. I think Dubai already has so much to offer, and it's not about starting from scratch, but adding to the building blocks. So I think we're really excited, and we're very happy to see that Dubai is on that agenda for the city and contributing to its economy.
So we're doing a lot of work, but we have a lot of work to do. Thank you, but with your support, it's really great. Thank you, Khulud. Ahmed?
It's very simple. Design is the ultimate tool to translate problem-solving issues. I mean, solving global issues into physical manifestation, regardless whether you're looking at it as a building or urban planning or infrastructure. And the faster you incubate these, the faster you allow them to grow through government initiatives, through private-public partnerships, the sooner we will solve our issues, even which are not even at a global scale of global issues. So we will resolve both internally and external factors altogether. So it's very simple, in my opinion.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please thank our guests.
Shukran.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hani.
Welcome.